Hello, I'm Clark Crawford, and welcome back to the latest edition of Clark Crawford Sports. Talking Astros baseball, of course, here on YouTube, as I have all season long, and coming up on my 1 year edition of Clark Crawford Sports here on YouTube, a big thing for me. But, anyways, we're talking Astros baseball here today. I know I missed my latest edition, my bad, of the Astros versus Red Sox, had some things going on. But, anyways, we missed the Astros versus Red Sox series preview, and we're going to do things a little differently today. But, anyways, to update you on the Astros and Red Sox series, if you missed it, the Red Sox take 2 of 3 against the Astros, and it's a disappointing homestand as the Astros went 3-3 against the Sox. Yes, the white version and the red version, the White Sox and Red Sox. What a funny kind of homestand that was, facing both pairs of Sox. So the Astros in the homestand 3-3, not ideal. You had 4-2 or 5-1 potentially in your grasp, but you were unable to secure some victories there. So a disappointing homestand to say the least. We did have a return of Justin Verlander. He goes 5 innings yesterday, picking up the loss. He pitched pretty well, but that's not what we're going to talk about here today. What we're going to talk about here today is all of the latest and get you up to date, because I don't always update all of the Astros roster moves, because it's been a flurry of them here lately. So really today's edition is going to be updating you on the Astros flurry of roster moves and a small amount of Astros versus Orioles series preview. But let's get right into the Astros flurry of roster moves. And we're going to start with, if you missed it last week, they released Aledmus Diaz. That is the first roster move. Then on the 17th, they recalled Seth Martinez from the Sugarland Space Cowboys because relief pitcher Ryan Presley goes on the 15-day IL, retroactive to August 14th, with a lower back strain. That is part of the problem with the Astros. Presley has not been the best version of Ryan Presley we've ever gotten, but he is still a key piece to this team. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. Then on the 19th, they recalled Trey Cabbage from the Sugarland Space Cowboys, and they optioned Pedro Leon, who, if you remember a couple of videos back, I predicted he's probably not going to be here much longer because, well, he's kind of stunk it up other than recording his all-important first MLB hit, so congrats to him on that. But Pedro Leon did not play well, and he is back in Sugarland. Then, of course, the Astros recalled JP France. That's just simply to put him on the 60-day IL, which was the same day he kind of recalled. And then that's just a different version of, saying he's been transferred from the 15-day to the 60-day IL. And then the Astros claimed right fielder Ben Gamel off waivers from the Mets. We're going to talk about him. The Astros have a new left-handed hitting outfielder. Who is Ben Gamel? Well, we're going to find out. And then they sent Seth Martinez down and then also recalled him on the same day on the 21st because Caleb Ort was placed on the paternity list. And so essentially Caleb Ort to the paternity list to activate, as I mentioned about a minute or two ago, Justin Verlander was activated and they had to make a roster move for that move. And so Justin Verlander is back and Caleb Ort is off the roster, which he will probably be maybe miss the whole Baltimore series, maybe catch the tail end, but I expect he'll be activated sometime soon after that. So like I said, a flurry of roster moves in the last week, maybe week and a half, and that's what we're talking about here today. So that first brings us to a roster move that we kind of knew that was coming. I predicted this was going to happen weeks back. And we're going to start with Luis Garcia, who was not on the transaction page because he's been on the 60-day IL. And Luis Garcia will not pitch for the Astros. This was as of August 19th. I'm recording on the 22nd. Luis Garcia will not pitch for the Astros this season, Joe Espada said. Garcia resumed playing catch this weekend, but he is targeted to getting him ready for spring training in 2025. That is the right move. Stop trying to push Luis Garcia. Let him do some long toss, some short toss, throw a bullpen every now and then, but just get his arm back and ready, all of his bullets ready to be fired for the 2025 spring training, because it's just not the right move. He's had multiple setbacks, and, well, just get him ready for spring training because like I said, he's had too many setbacks already, and there's just not enough time left in the regular season. It's unfortunate, but it's the right move. I think Luis Garcia will be ready to go by then, as long as, things don't continue to go wrong for him as they have throughout the 2024 season. So that will take us to the Astros, as I mentioned in the roster transactions portion of early in the video. The Astros claimed right fielder, outfielder, whatever you want to call him, Ben Gamel, and he's going to be activated and in the lineup. If you haven't already seen tonight's lineup, he is in the lineup playing right field. The Astros have gotten one of the worst productions out of the right field position since Kyle Tucker went down. And, well, Ben Gamel, he's a left-handed hitter, and here are his career numbers. I don't expect a ton out of Ben Gamel, but with how abysmal Pedro Leon was, Trey Cabbage, who Pedro Leon and Trey Cabbage are now back at AAA Sugarland, and of course we all know how bad Chas McCormick has been this season. I really wish 2023 Chas would come back, but it's starting to look like more and more and more as the days go on. That is long gone. He has a couple homers this year, but he's simply not the same player. So Ben Gamel, he's going to get a chance. He has played for the Mets in 23 at-bats so far this season, 18 games. He hit .217, a 400 on-base percentage. That is because of his 7 walks in 23 at-bats. So that's a good sign, but with the high on-base percentage. But realistically, Ben Gamel, as you can see from his numbers here, he had 15 at-bats last year for San Diego. So we're really looking at his 2022 numbers as they're up here on the screen as the last time he got real playing time in the major leagues. He played 115 games for the Pirates, 9 homers, 46 RBIs, .232 average, and 324 on base percentage. Honestly, if Ben Gamel can give the Astros that, about a .230, .240 average, pop a couple of home runs, in the playing time he's going to get, and have about a .330 on base percentage, roughly rounding up, the Astros will certainly take that because that's better than what they've gotten out of their right fielders since Kyle Tucker has gone down. So we'll see what Ben Gamel can do. I don't have high hopes because, well, you can see he's only had 38 at-bats in the last 2 seasons in the major leagues, so that tells you a lot. He's 32 years old. He's an outfielder, kind of just a guy that's going to be just a guy who maybe you get some production out of him, maybe you don't. It's one of those moves of you're desperate. So whatever Ben Gamel can give you out of the positive sign, he's not going to come in here and hit 350, 320, 315, roughly right around where Altuve is and Alvarez and, of course, Yainer Diaz right around that 300 mark. He's not going to do that. But, heck, even if he gave you 250 because his career batting average is .252, the Astros will certainly take anything they can get out of Ben Gamel because, well, their thought process is it can't be worse than what they're getting out of McCormick, Cabbage, and Leon, who have taken the most of the playing time in right field since, unfortunately, the Kyle Tucker injury happened on June 3rd. So there's Ben Gamel. He is your newest Astro on the roster as of today. And we have another new Astro. Well, he's a new old Astro, but as of this morning, if you haven't heard already, the Astros have signed for the rest of the regular season. They re-signed Hector Neris. And if you remember, he signed with the Cubs in the offseason for a 1-year deal with an option, and that option is now gone because the Cubs cut him. If he appeared in an X amount of games, his option kicked in. I believe it was 60. And I will show you Hector Neris' numbers here in a minute. Well, Hector Neris is back with the Astros, but what has Hector Neris been up to so far this season? And we're going to go over his season numbers as I did kind of go over them in the Astros versus Cubs series preview. But what has Hector Neris done since then? Now, I want to preface this as in I predicted Hector Neris a little bit of a drop-off, not to say he'd be the worst pitcher in baseball. In my Astros offseason review and getting you ready for spring training, you should go check that video out to, if you want to fact-check me. But I did predict some Hector Neris regression, and I think that's what we've seen. Not to say the Astros can't turn him around, but so far this season, Hector Neris has regressed a little bit. Now, looking at his numbers last year and in the previous year, in 2022, he had a 3.72 ERA. He was pretty good, and he was elite and was a wipeout setup man in the 2022 postseason for the Astros. And then last year, he had a career best year, 1.71 ERA. So what has Hector Neris been up to this year? Well, he was the Cubs closer for the most part, and he had 17 saves and 22 opportunities. That's pretty good. Not elite numbers, but it's still good for a closer to blow 5 saves. Not ideal, but I'll take 17 out of 22 for most closers. I know people might think I'm crazy, but he still had solid closing numbers. So he's 8-4, a 3.89 ERA, which is over double what he had last year. So that's a little bit of the Hector Neris regression. He pitched in 71 games. And also remember, Hector Neris is 35 years old now. That's why I predicted some regression. And so Hector Neris is pitching 44 innings, the 3.89 ERA, 17 to 22 saves, 44 innings. And he's given up 20 runs, 19 of them earned. And last season, he only gave up a total of 13 runs in 71 games, 68 in the third innings pitched. Also, Hector Neris' whip, which is something I'm definitely pointing towards his regression. He has a 105 whip last season, and then this season he has a 152 whip. So Hector Neris, I'm not saying he's had a major drop off. I just said he would have some regression before the season started, and we've seen a little bit of that. I'm not saying he's the worst pitcher in baseball. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying the Astros can't turn Hector Neris around, but he's had a little bit of regression. If you disagree with that, you're just flat out wrong. He's been worse than he was last season, and that concludes to some regression. So hopefully Hector Neris and the Astros, as they've had a history of turning some pitchers around, especially in their run of dominant Astros baseball over the past 7, and hopefully this year making it back to another ALCS, would be 8 straight ALCSs. But nonetheless, Hector Neris is back. So that kind of leads me to the question of, here I'll get to in a second. So Ryan Pressly is on the IL, and the earliest he can return is August 29th. And the Astros' latest roster move is the reunion with Hector Neris, as we're talking about right now. When I first heard of the potential move a few days ago, I honestly predicted, because I didn't know at the time, that somebody would probably put in a waiver claim for Hector Neris. That was my original thought. Well, nobody did, and it came out as of yesterday or the day before that Hector Neris was just flat out released. He was on waivers, and nobody claimed him. So that surprised me at first. And so Hector Neris cleared waivers and was free to sign with anybody, and the Astros said, hey, for a minimum contract prorated for the rest of the year, we'll give Hector Neris another chance. So what do you think Hector Neris will do as an Astro? Do you think he'll be elite again or what? But let me know down below in the comments what you think of the Hector Neris move. I know a lot of people are a big fan of it, but as of right now, Hector Neris is an Astro. And, well, if you're not a fan of it, let me know. Do you think Neris, as I predicted earlier in the year, I don't think he's going to be washed, but Hector Neris is certainly a hopeful good addition to the Astros bullpen and the Astros pitching staff in total. So the Astros are currently in a stretch of 18 games in 18 days. So Hector Neris has not been added to the roster yet. I believe it might not be till the Philadelphia series or maybe the last game of the Baltimore series, which starts tonight, that he will be activated, just because he still has a physical to go through and there's some other things going on that are potentially holding up the deal. So the deal may not be official for a couple of days, but it is expected he's going to pass his physical, and then he'll be free to sign with the Astros, sign his name on the dotted line, and then they can get him either to Baltimore, hopefully by Saturday or Sunday, or even Monday for the Philadelphia Phillies series. So with that being said, Hector Neris and the Astros are in a stretch of 18 games in 18 days, so this is potentially some stability for the bullpen. But my biggest question is, and I don't have anything to back this up as of right now, but is the Hector Neris move because maybe Ryan Pressly is going to be out a little longer than expected? I don't think that's the case, but what if Ryan Pressly has a setback or something, the Hector Neris move is used to bolster the bullpen. And also if Ryan Pressly, who I think could have potentially been hurt longer than, he went on the IL on August 14th, essentially, because it was retroactive to the 14th. But was Ryan Pressly pitching hurt? Because I know Ryan Pressly had a ton of struggles in his recent outings. His last 7 or 8 outings, he had allowed runs in 5 or 6 of them, something similar to that. So Ryan Pressly, was he hurt for longer than what he was leading on? And how serious is the Ryan Pressly injury? They think he's going to be back. Hopefully, maybe September 1st, and Ryan Pressly maybe is your kind of September call-up. So with the Ryan Pressly news, is it bad news on Ryan Pressly? I don't think so, but it's just another thought that came up in my mind of, is the Pressly injury more severe than the Astros are leading on, because they've had a lot of bad luck with injuries already this year. And Hector Neris, how is he going to pitch as an Astro? We're going to find out. And the other fallout from the Hector Neris signing is the Astros' current bullpen as of today. I'm recording this, as I mentioned earlier in the video, on August 22nd. The current Astros bullpen with the 6-man rotation, you can carry 13 pitchers on your roster on the 26-man roster. And then, of course, it expands to a 14th pitcher and a 28-man roster on September 1st. So maybe they wait till September 1st to activate Ryan Pressly. That's probably my thought. Give him a couple extra days, as he can be activated on August 29th is the earliest the Astros can activate him, because he is on the 15-day IL. So the current Astros bullpen as of right now is Josh Hader, Brian Abreu, Caleb Ferguson, Brian King, Seth Martinez, Sean Dubin, and Taylor Scott. Some pretty good names there. Taylor Scott having a career year. He's had struggles as of late, but with the Hector Neris also addition, they can pitch Taylor Scott a little bit less, because Taylor Scott, like I said, he's had his recent struggles, and also he's had a career high in innings, the whole 9 yards with Ronel Blanco, that whole situation and everything. That's going to help with the Astros leverage situation, pitch Taylor Scott a little less and everything. You expect Hector Neris, Ryan Pressly, and probably Caleb Ort to be added back to the Astros bullpen here in the coming days or in the next week or so. With the names I listed, Hader, Abreu, Ferguson, King, Martinez, Dubin, and Scott, the other big question is, who are going to be the odd ones out? Obviously, you can add one of those guys on September 1st, or are you going to add a name such as maybe a Forrest Whitley? We're going to get to that later on and see if that bridge is crossed on September 1st. So with Neris and probably Ort in the next 3 to 4 days needing to be added, I believe probably Sean Dubin and Seth Martinez are the odd guys out for now. But when Pressly comes back, it's likely going to come down to Brian King or Caleb Ferguson. Though the thing is, with Caleb Ferguson, who was traded to the Astros at the deadline from the Yankees, I think he's going to get a longer leash in the bullpen. I know a lot of people do not agree with this perspective, though Caleb Ferguson was an acquisition, and I don't think the Astros want to give up on him that quickly. He's a left-hander, so I think the last move in the bullpen, counting the September call-up, which could end up being Ryan Pressly as the extra pitcher, call him up on September 1st, it might come down to Caleb Ferguson or Brian King. That's something to watch out of the bullpen that I'm going to have my eyes on, because with potentially 3 pitchers coming back within the next week and a half, or being added to the roster, whichever way you want to see it, who's going to be the odd man out on the bullpen? That's something to keep an eye on for the Astros, because Caleb Ort has definitely earned a roster spot. And also, if you just signed Hector Neris, he's definitely being added to the roster as well. The last situation we need to talk about, because, it's going to become a storyline, and, it already is, the Alex Bregman situations. If you remember from the weekend, Alex Bregman did not play for 5 straight games, and he was inserted back into the Astros lineup yesterday on Wednesday. And now Alex Bregman, who was DH yesterday, is also the DH again tonight for the Astros lineup. I'm not going to go into it, but Ben Gamble's in the lineup in right field, and Alex Bregman is sitting second at DH. These are the comments for Alex Bregman when he was asked about his injury and trying to get back to playing third base. Alex Bregman said it's going to be a fluid situation for the rest of the season, There is still swelling in his elbow. Some gremlins in there are causing it, he said. But Bregman did resume throwing today. This was as of yesterday. He was interviewed after the game by several reporters. I've shown you a little clip from Chandler Rome there, a little blurb of it. That's not promising, and it causes further problems in the Astros lineup that they already had because, well, the Astros lineup has been pretty bad. It's been hit or miss as of late, but leaning towards it's not been a good lineup for really the majority of the season. You can argue it was part of the reason for their slow start. Well, the whole team was, but at the same time, the Astros lineup has just not been great, especially as of late and everything. So it just further complicates things because the Astros like to DH Yordan Alvarez, play him in left field, maybe do more of a platoon, DH left field, DH left field. He's played the over half of his games as the DH this season. I believe he's played 71 games as the DH this year. And he's also played about 40 games in left field as well. So they like to play him both. But if Alex Bregman has to be more of your full-time DH for the rest of the season, that takes giving guys days off their feet and having to give them full days off. Now, not that I think Alex Bregman, Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve, who have gotten days off recently, are going to be out of the lineup very much, but it really limits your roster flexibility as of right now and going forward. So Alex Bregman's DHing again tonight. That puts Yordan Alvarez in left field a lot more often, which the Astros probably didn't want to play Yordan Alvarez in left field in the Baltimore Orioles series, a lot due to the fact that a couple of years ago, the Baltimore Orioles already extended their left field and made it even deeper. The Astros like to hide Yordan Alvarez in left field as much as they can, just because due to the fact, yeah, he can move around a little more, but they want to keep him as healthy as possible because, well, you know, when you think of the Houston Astros and power and the big bats in the lineup, most people would say the first name that comes to mind is Yordan Alvarez. He's a key part of this team, and they want to keep him as healthy as possible. So the best way to do that, DH him. It's just going to cause further problems, as I mentioned. Bregman missed 5 straight games, and he'll likely have to DH for the short term and probably long term rest of the season future. So how does this factor in? To get both catchers in the lineup, which both catchers are in the lineup as they are tonight, Victor Caratini is catching and Yainer Diaz is at first base. That further impacts guys like John Singleton, Zach DeCenzo, Shea Whitcomb, you know, just because one of those guys might play first base, and now they're going to be losing more time because Alex Bregman is going to be needed to DH. It's really a complicated matter. The Astros already had enough lineup problems and roster flexibility. That's why I've been imploring, as I mentioned for several videos now, the Astros need to call up Cesar Salazar there to have a third catcher. But I really think when the rosters expand to 28 and you can add another position player, the easy roster move has got to be Cesar Salazar, just because if you're going to be playing Yainer Diaz at first base, Victor Caratini catching, or even let Cesar Salazar catch and maybe even go crazy and get all 3 catchers in the lineup, but Bregman is healthy enough to play or third base, maybe put Yainer at first, Caratini DH, and have Salazar as the catcher. That'd be a little crazy, but I mean, heck, why not give it a shot once if you are going to call Cesar Salazar up, because he deserves some playing time as well on September 1st. Just a little thought I had, not to say they're going to do it. I think it's pretty doubtful, but it's definitely a thought. Why not play all 3 catchers, get a little crazy, maybe you get some offense out of it. That's my thoughts on the Alex Bregman situation. It's a mess. The Astros roster is a mess. I mean, with all the roster transactions, that's the whole point of my video today. It's just to talk about it and say, man, there's so many new faces or old faces coming back, or, you know, a new face, then an old face, a new face. It's just a mess. The Astros are just trying to hold on and maybe, you know, hopefully make the playoffs and then try to make some noise in October. Not to say they have won 11-14, don't get me wrong, though. Some of these games coming up, they play the Orioles for 4, the Phillies for 3, all on the road, and then the Kansas City Royals for 4. It's a tough 11-game stretch. Let me know down below in the comments what you think their record is going to be. in that tough 11 game stretch because, well, the Astros are going to have to play well because even though Seattle's been a stinker, especially as of late, and I'm going to talk about some Seattle Mariners news here in a minute. You might think I'm crazy, but it's kind of a little funny news with how bad Seattle's been as of late. The Astros, at least as of today, still remain because the Mariners got swept by the Dodgers the last 3 days. Thank you, Dodgers. I will not say the words, go Dodgers ever again. But thank you, Dodgers, for taking care of the Mariners because the Astros didn't take care of business the last few days. But thank you, Dodgers, for that. And the Mariners are 5 games behind you. So luckily, they're still in their heavy funk that they've been in for the last couple months. That'll take me to the last thing I'm going to get to here on Clark Crawford Sports today, and a little bit of Seattle Mariners news that impacts the Astros, and that is sources from Ken Rosenthal. Mariners have fired, this was expected to fire, since then they have fired Scott Servais. Scott Servais is a former Astro, but he's been a pain in the butt for the Astros since he's been the Seattle Mariners manager for almost 9 seasons now. He did not make it for the 9th full season, but Scott Servais has been fired and let the door hit him on the way out. He's been a mega douche, especially towards the Astros lately. I think he's been a solid manager, but Scott Servais, I mean, you've collapsed how many times? And they should have won the division probably multiple times in the last couple of years. He's failed to do so. And of course, thank you to the Mariners for choking the series away to the Astros. They had multiple chances to win multiple of those games in 2022. Of course, when the Astros swept them in the divisional round of the playoffs and went on to win the World Series. But nonetheless, Scott Servais is out the door. I hate to see him go just for the fact that, I don't like the guy, but the Astros sure love putting a beating on him and his Seattle Mariners. But nonetheless, Scott Servais is gone. How does this make you feel? Let me know down below in the comments, and we'll see who the Seattle Mariners manager is for the 2025 season. So with all that being said, that is your latest edition of Clark Crawford Sports. We are going to end the episode here. Thank you all for watching. Like my video down below. Comment down below. Let me know what you think of this video. Maybe I'll have some more of it in the future. And of course, subscribe to my channel as I move closer to 200 subscribers. I'm still sitting on 190, but I hope to get to 200 before late September when my 1-year anniversary of posting videos on YouTube comes up. So let me know if you'd like to be a subscriber. Please subscribe and help me get to my goal of 200 before my 1-year middle to late September comes up. And I will end the video there. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you in the next edition of Clark Crawford Sports on Monday for an Astros versus Orioles series recap and an Astros versus Phillies series preview.